Hey everybody, and welcome to week 9 of this course. This week we're going to begin essentially a 3-week sort of series on World War II. And we're going to begin by looking at some of the core causes for that conflict. Now, like World War I, this begins very much as a European conflict. It's not something that the United States is going to get involved in, at least not immediately. And in some ways, although the traditional narrative places World War II as beginning in September of 1939 when Hitler, under the Nazi Party, invades Poland, conflict had already erupted in Asia, specifically in Mongolia with Japan and China and territorial issues. And so in some respects, World War II actually began in the sort of mid-1930s. And while all of the various causes that we will talk about are developing, with the rise of Benito Mussolini, the rise of Adolf Hitler, increased imperialism and militarism on behalf of the Japanese, particularly during the Meiji era and thereafter, right? What you have is a United States very much like World War I, where they are going to remain neutral and somewhat isolated. Although one thing that we will see this week is that unlike Woodrow Wilson, who during World War I called for the U.S. to remain neutral in thought and action, Franklin Roosevelt will not call for the United States to remain neutral in thought. And in fact, I believe that Franklin Roosevelt very much wanted to get involved in World War II before the attack on Pearl Harbor. And indeed, we do get involved in the war around 1940, early 1941, through a number of different programs, including one known as Lend-Lease. We'll talk about that. But the sentiment, for the most part, by many Americans was that we weren't going to get involved in this war, this conflict, right? We didn't sign the Treaty of Versailles, so it's not our concern to uphold its tenets. And one of the things that you're going to find this week is that as Adolf Hitler gains more and more power in Germany, ultimately to the demise of the Weimar Republic, multiple nations just choose not to act. And Britain and France have their reasons for not acting. We'll talk about that. And the United States, of course, has its desires to not act. And it really doesn't have to because, again, it didn't sign the Treaty of Versailles. And this is precisely why. Remember, the Senate, at the time in which the treaty was being under consideration, did not want to be sucked into European affairs. And this is exactly what would have happened had the U.S. signed it. It would have been obligated in many ways to get involved. But we're going to take a look at the rise of Adolf Hitler, the rise of Benito Mussolini, and as we talk about the development of what becomes known as the Axis powers, we will also be looking at America's role of neutrality, okay? And then next week, we'll take a look at the war. Specifically, we'll be looking at the American home front and the impact that the war had on the home front. And then the week after that, we'll be looking at what I call war crimes. And we'll be looking at the incarceration of Japanese Americans during World War II, as well as America's response to growing anti-Semitism against Jews in Germany and Europe generally, as well as the Holocaust. So that's what we got coming up. You don't have anything major as far as assignments go. I think your next assignment, the second PowerPoint, will be due sometime in December. You can check the syllabus for the specific date on that, but nothing that you really need to concern yourself immediately with, other than, of course, the discussion boards every week. But that's pretty much where we're at. So if you have questions or anything, contact me, and as always, I'll get back to you. Otherwise, as always, go in peace, be warm and filled. May the force be with you. Live long and prosper, and may the odds forever be in your favor. Have a blessed week, guys.